Hello viewers, Super GT here. Let's jump straight into some really competitive racing on Gran Turismo Sport. So this was last week's Daily Race C, 2 laps around the Nordschleife in Group 4 cars. This was my first race, therefore we're going to show it first in the video. Makes sense, doesn't it? So, starting 11th. Now I put quite a lot of time into qualifying, and yet I was only 11th. It was a very competitive race, lots of people really going for very fast laps in qualifying for this event, and that made for quite a difficult race. We're going to skip through this first and second race quite quickly. Now this was the end of the first lap of the first race, and as you can see there, one of the drivers going off into the wall. I'd been cut adrift off the group, so I was kind of on my own there, but then thankfully, not for him, but thankfully for me, this guy went into the wall, managed to catch up with him, slipstream past him, and gain our first position of the race. Took nearly 7 minutes to do that. A little bit further in, so maybe a third of the way into lap number 2, we have this almighty kerfuffle, and it kind of gets resolved with this Lamborghini losing out many positions side by side here on this straight. Now I've gone for the Toyota 86, which was the go-to car for this race, although a fair few people going for the Lamborghini, the Subaru and the Porsche Cayman as well, so some other choices in there. So we gained that position there. This was the end of the lap, and as you can see, things became very choked up, as it always tends to do at the Nordschleife. This is why this track is actually such an exciting place to race at. Yes, it is tricky to overtake, except for on the long straight at the end, but even having said that, it was definitely possible. It wasn't impossible. So at the long straight at the end, which we are now at, German there serving a penalty. We gained that position up into 8th, and now we're going to try and slipstream past and gain 7th. And given that I started 11th, that wouldn't be too bad of a result, as again it is quite tricky to overtake here. I pull to the left, go for the gap. Unfortunately for me, the Spaniard here still has the slipstream of the Cayman up there, and look behind, the Lamborghini has got unreal straight line speed and is going to come straight at us. Look at that. Going to have to give him space on the left hand side here. He's half on the curb and through the corner into the big final braking zone of the lap. I just managed to stay ahead, but that was a very close call indeed between many of us. It got very close indeed. You see just how close this is as we cross the finish line. Finishing 8th wasn't too bad, but for our first race, ideally we needed to do better, and so I wanted to improve my qualifying time. 7:01.8 was my best time, but the optimum sat at below a 7.7, so I know I can go more than a second quicker. So I did one lap, it was a 7:01.9, so I need to go around again and just try and beat that really. Because this is such a long track, more than 12 miles in length, it is very difficult to hook together a perfect lap. It's very likely you're going to make a mistake because there's so many corners. But let me just run you through this first sector, because you really do learn from watching the top replays about learning to use the grass, especially with this left-hander here. So you turn into a lawnmower at times when you're in search of a very fast time around this circuit, and again there onto the grass. But that's just basically what you have to do on this game. Now, around this track as well. This was the final sector. I'm 9/10 up coming into the final braking zone. So I'm going for a 7.9. So this would be a very good lap if I can just complete it here. Hit that corner nicely into the final corner, which is this right-hander here. And we're just going to run a tiny bit too wide. 1 pixel onto the grass. Before you know it, you're sliding across the track, and it's a 7:01.4, so I improved by 0.4. But I lost, I would say, half a second with that mistake, which is super frustrating because it was the final corner of a 7-minute lap. But that puts ahead of that Lamborghini, which we were behind, and you can see there, I move immediately to the left because the Toyota GT86 here, it has a very poor launch on this race because, of course, it is a standing start. So let's go through this race quite quickly. The French driver there, sorry, I just try and catch my breath commentating too quick. So the French driver there making a mistake going wide, but you see we're cut adrift of the group in front, so we couldn't really get any slipstream, but the French driver manages to get my slipstream. So he goes flying straight back past. So we're going to have to work together here as one of the other drivers there having a big mistake, visiting barrier. And the French driver here just runs a little bit wide through Arenberg. Very easy to do that. Just loses a bit of momentum and he leaves the door open. And I take the invitation, got the inside, and take 4th position. So we started 7th, up into 4th. Not too bad. But then I go a little bit too wide here. That invites the French driver around the outside. He kind of backs out, and then all of a sudden, the Portuguese driver in the Cayman just comes in to join the party. There he is. So now we have a three-way fight for 4th. And this is always a very difficult thing to juggle. If you're the leader going onto this back straight and they're in your tow, it's quite hard to defend your position. You're kind of a sitting duck, to be honest. So I'm just hoping that Cayman does something wrong, does something silly. He's bumping me up the straight, but that's because he doesn't want to go past me just yet. He wants to get the momentum to do it just at the end of the straight. So I'm still looking for when he's going to make his move. And he makes it there. So I still have the left for the inside here, but then it's a drag race down the hill, and then the Frenchman helps him to get past, and we're side by side with the Frenchman on this part. Now I've lost 2 positions, but they make contact, and I try and nip underneath and regain at least one of the positions. Almost could have got the other position there. Portuguese driver in the Cayman covers it off, and then we're going to finish in 5th. A very exciting end, and that tends to happen around this track. You get formed into little clusters, and then you have a little battle between each other. But this race here, I know that this year is only about 3 weeks old, if that, but this is probably my best race of the year, so far at least. Starting in 10th. Now, you'll see what I mean at the end of this video, at the end of this race, why it was such a good one. But I say many times around the Nordschleife, you do have to be very wary of just the rate of attrition. You don't want to be one of the people visiting the barrier and ending up on your roof, ending up on fire. You just have to make sure that you don't crash. It's very easy to do it around this track. So my main aim, of course, is to try to just stay in the fight, but also at the same time just to drive at 98% rather than 102%. Let's just drive slightly under the limit rather than slightly above it, because otherwise you're risking a monumental accident. So at this point here, the Viper just in front, losing out a couple of positions, and this is the important thing around here. You really need the slipstream. So yes, we have the slipstream of the Viper, but what we really need to do is bridge that gap so that we're on the back of the pack in front, and then we can ideally go for a move on the back straight. That's really the tactic of this race. Just try to get into a position where you can possibly go for a move on the final straight, and in some other places too, but mainly on that straight. So what we need to do now, work together, try and push forward, catch back up with the group in front. Haven't gained any positions at this point in time, but it's still early days just yet. So we're going to have a look ahead, and this accident happened here, so the driver goes very wide, ends up clipping the other guy, so that's both of them off into the wall. And this is exactly what I was saying about a high attrition rate around this track. Lots of cars will end up crashing. It's very easy to do, just to dip 2 wheels onto the grass or something like that. And before you know it, you're heading into a very big accident. So we're getting 2 positions for free there. We're going to skip forward slightly. This is just before the carousel, lap number 1, so about halfway into the first lap. So I've lost the toe of the guys in front, but then the Viper actually goes wide into the wall. So we catch him back up. And there's lots of fighting up in front. Looks like a Swiss driver ending up on the grass as well. So into a fairly big group here. At the front of this pack is 3rd place. In fact, 2nd place is very much within sight. The Subaru goes around the outside, but then rather weirdly backs out. If he had just stayed there, he would have had the inside for the carousel, but kind of backed out. Okay, we're going to keep 8th position for now. But this is quite an interesting prospect here, because 2nd place is actually well within sight. The leader is long gone, but this part of the lap is crucial, and I was kind of reliant upon this Viper to keep tabs with the cars in front. But as you can see, 6th place, 5th place, and so on, they just managed to break away slightly. And at a very important time, because we're going to come up to the back straight in about a minute or so. So we really need to be going a little bit quicker than this. And unfortunately, the pace just wasn't there when it really needed to be there. So into the mini carousel, very tricky corner this. You have to get into it quite early. The Viper kind of leaves too early and then doesn't quite get the full benefits of the camber through that corner. So I'm going to gain the position, and I'm just going to make a bit of a mistake there, make an absolute hash of the corner, exit onto the back straight. So as you can see, we've been cut adrift off the group in front. We're not going to get the slipstream. We're going to lose at least half a second here, just by virtue of not being in the slipstream of the cars in front of that train. There's 5 of them there. So we are all going to be in a little group of 3 here instead. And quite unfortunate timing there. But there's still another lap left to go after this. So still time within which we can gain some positions. So a bit of a human centipede being formed here down the back straight as we head into the final couple of corners of the lap. A very big braking zone. I'm looking for the curb on the right. This curb here. Wait for it just to end, and then you're going to start braking. Then that should see you into this corner just fine. Like that. Viper goes a little bit wide. I don't think this guy actually has the pace. He was a bit slow on the second half of that lap. So yes, he got back past me there, but right, I'm going to go back past him. Now it's my job to try to catch up. This is quite an important role. So I have 1 lap to try to bridge this gap. They're probably about 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds ahead. But as you can see, this is what it looks like in that group, just up in front. It's very, very close indeed. And surely all of that fighting between them is going to slow them down. Usually it does. If they're going to be sensible, they need to start working together. So it's my job to try to catch up as quickly as possible. The gap, I've probably got it down by about half a second already. But it's probably sat at just over 1 second at this point. Maybe 1.5 seconds. So ideally I need this Subaru driver who is with me to give me some bump drafts. We could work together and start edging our way closer to this group. And that will give us a chance of gaining possibly 5 positions, because there's five cars in that group. And you never know what could happen around the Nordschleife. So working together here, the 2 of us. The Toyota 86 feeling very, very comfortable indeed. Doesn't quite have the straight line speed. But there's a big moment here. If you watch the green car just up in front, so that's Scotty, ends up going very, very wide indeed onto the grass. And he's come back through like a passenger, absolute passenger in that one. And we're going to gain the position. So the group of 5 now becomes a group of 4. And we have gained on it. So things are just slowly working in our favour. But we have to keep going. We're still not into the slipstream range just yet. So we need to gain maybe another half a second at least. And then we're back onto the back of that group. So we're going to take this section quite nicely. I must have done about, let's say, 1.5 hours, maybe possibly 2 hours of time trial for this event. And that is what, maybe about 10, 11, 12 laps. So I put in quite a lot of time into this time trial, so I feel fairly comfortable with lapping this circuit. And at this point in time, it really comes down to your time trial knowledge. There's a bit of tyre wear, so your tyres are a bit more worn than normal. But just trying to catch up, just really not even worrying about what that group in front is doing, just trying to catch up as best as I can by just taking the best lines I possibly can. So I gained there, but then I actually lose maybe 1/10 or 2 on the exit, so I just took a bit too much curb. Now this moment, well, this one caught me by surprise. So the Spaniard managed to nip underneath. I'm not sure if there was contact if he pushed his way through. But there's definitely a big push here. As we come into this very slow corner at the bottom of the hill, Spaniard ends up getting shoved into the barrier. And then we're going to gain another position. So the group of 5 becomes a group of 4, and then becomes a group of 3. But now it's back to a group of 5, because myself and the Subaru have joined the back of it. So up into 5th, we started 10th. And 2nd place is staring us in the face. The leader is long gone. Kalikful? I don't know how you say his name, but he's a very, very quick guy. He's long gone, so there's not much chance of trying to beat him. But 2nd place is just there. So the Swiss driver, probably about the 4th time in the race, ends up grinding the barrier and then reclaiming the position there against the Subaru. And that's kind of good news for me. As you can see, a bit of a gap develops between myself and those cars behind. So now I'm up into a clear 4th position. So slowly but surely, this race is coming into my favour. Through, yes, elements of luck, but also just through hard work and persistence as well. And that's all you can really do around this track. Just put in the lap times, don't crash, and then kind of hope that things work in your favour. It doesn't always work in your favour. You know, everyone in front of me could have just driven perfectly and then I'll still be in 10th. But that's just the way that races are. They're all different. And you just got to capitalise on each thing as it happened, basically. So far, driven fairly well, but there's still one more position to get. So the Bulgarian driver in front in the Atenza, maybe about a second, 1.1, 1.2 seconds ahead. I'm having to use the replay angles because, annoyingly, my Elgato didn't want to record the race properly. So you can't actually see the time gaps on the timing screen on the left. But it's about 1.1 at this point, if I recall correctly. Maybe a little bit more. So this section, again, as it was in the previous races, is crucial because I need to get within slipstream range, so about 3/4 of a second. I need to gain maybe 3 or 4 tenths on this guy in front in the next sort of 2 minutes of racing. And it sounds easy, but everyone in this lobby was so well matched. Most of the people in front had very good lap times, or in fact everyone in front had quicker lap times than me in qualifying. And it was actually very, very even for the majority of this pack. As you can see during the course of this race, lots of people very, very close to each other in close proximity. So we are just beginning to edge slightly closer, but you can see he's just tantalisingly far away enough that I can't quite begin to get the toe. But this is where he makes one mistake, drives a little bit too early into that corner, and therefore comes off wide on the exit. I'm going to gain a tenth or two, so we're getting very, very close indeed, but I still need to gain another tenth or two at this point. Down the hill, over the crest, getting all over the curb, onto the power as early as possible, maximising all of the track. And if there's one thing I learned this week from being quick around this track, it's really, really having to maximise the width of the track as much as possible, and in many instances making the track even wider than what the track is by going onto the grass, which is a bit silly, but that's kind of how it is. So a couple of corners left to go before the back straight, still gaining slightly, but I need to gain maybe just a tiny bit more. And he's just a little bit wide, he's a bit ragged in places. He's surely aware of the pressure, and then through the mini carousel he doesn't really take it very well. And I'm definitely within the slipstream range now as we head into the long right hander leading onto the back straight. Are we going to be close enough to get the slipstream against the Atenza? Let's see as we head onto the straight for the final time. Car behind is me because that was the view from him. So we're going to take a look backwards from his perspective as well. Definitely into the toe now. He's going to be looking behind, surely aware that I've got the full toe. He's trying to move fully to the left-hand side, but there's not much he can do about it. I'm going to pull out to the right-hand side, go for the overtake, and move up into second place on the final straight. But he's still got a chance of coming back here because there's still a little bit more straight going down the hill here. And he's going to pull out to the left, and this is where he makes the fatal error of pulling onto the curb of death, smashing into the barrier. So plenty of cars making mistakes in this race, and he ends up just getting shoved wide here and then losing 3 positions. So he's gone from 2nd to 6th in a matter of maybe 30 seconds. And then I'm going to cross the line a couple of moments later to finish in 2nd place. Started 10th, gained 8 positions, ended up 2nd. And that was really a lesson in driving at a good pace, a very good pace, but just keeping it nice and tidy, making it nice and clean, making the right decisions at the right time, and being the beneficiary of lots of people crashing. But there we go, a really good race. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.